saints, all marching in.
Like and subscribe.
Subscribe.
Welcome to Saints at Manahawkin United Methodist Church. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Joyce Trainer. She's been a lifelong Christian all her life and a wonderful member of this church for many years. So Joyce, thanks for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to hearing your life story. You don't have enough time to share this.
No, I don't, not at this age. But I thank you for asking me,
you're welcome.
because it made me think this through again
Yes,
and
absolutely.
collect my thoughts.
More than anything else, that people will, looking at your, video and all these things, they share your life stories. That's what most important thing.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Anyway, so I have a first question about your childhood. When you were growing up, you have some favorite memories or something like that. Would you like to share with us?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to start with my earliest Sunday school memories in the Reformed Church of America in Spring Valley, New York.
Wow. Okay.
And this is something that I remember. And I just wrote down some of the thoughts.
Yeah.
Dropping, 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 little gifts of love, little gifts of love. Jesus loves us truly. We return his love. This was our walking around giving our nickel, which is what you gave at your offering. I can remember walking with everywhere from 3 to maybe 5 years old. This was my earliest memory. This was the nursery area.
Wow.
And I just remember loving teachers and stories of the Bible and Jesus. That started me off. Of course, you brought your flyer home and just kind of relived the story at home. And this I just want to talk about the giving part of it, because it was fun. Some of us kind of danced, and we held hands, or we skipped as we walked with our offerings.
Yes.
And we did it together, and the joy of giving just became a natural part of our experience. Of course, we gave what someone else had given to us.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
which is important to remember now.
That's
at this
right.
later.
Yes.
Later, I was aware of Sunday school teachers who loved to tell a story, and they loved us. And teaching with gentle, encouraging, just their presence, they were stewards of a story that became memorable. In Jesus' words, suffer the little children, I always think of this beginning for me. And still later, my teacher, a student at Union Theological Seminary, taught us on the journeys of Paul, the book of Acts, and she was really a steward of the history. And the integrity and spirit of the book of Acts and the letters of Paul was just a signal to me of her commitment to teaching us, as we were at that point junior high and beginning high school.
Wow.
And she kept us enthralled. I'm grateful.
Oh, wow.
Mine was, as just about everybody's, a history of stories, family stories, stories of friends, the world at large. We were and are listeners to stories. Some of the greatest stories Jesus told end with a question. And this always stayed with me. Is not life more than food, and the body than clothing?
How about that? Yeah.
Why are you afraid?
You're right.
Do you love me? Who was neighbor to this man? And who do you say that I am? And these questions, starting as a church school child, carried me through quite a long time. My mother died when I was 13, 12, the end of my 12th year, she had been ill for several years with cancer. And Dr. Wyckoff, the pastor of the church, was there a long time. He always engaged me when I loved his sermons. And he would have me draw a picture of the pillars of wisdom or something to just show that I absorbed. And what I thought of, it was more a question of how engaged was I in all this. Now I'm still, I'm struggling with truth, and truth for me has always been Jesus. And this for me saw me through high school, and we had an unusual high school in Spring Valley. Every Wednesday for 1 hour there was excused time for anybody who did not want to engage in a study of their religion. This public school, all the different churches in town, a minister, a representative, or priest,
Oh, really?
taught for that hour, and kids who were not interested in doing this had a study hall or free time. So it was something. I got to meet the other pastors in town because every year, now the Episcopal priest taught us one year, the Methodist minister 1 year, and my minister, and the rabbi. We had a large Jewish community, and that became very much a part of our religious life. I was very fortunate in that way. This whole idea of going through high school, just as you are a high school kid, but somewhat engaged always in what my church required of me. I sang in the choir, and I did all of those things, but I also did all the other stuff. I was a cheerleader, and that was the most important thing in the world, you know. So we moved from there. One other memory of church, because my mother died when I was young. I can remember sitting in the pew between my mother and father, and she had a fur collar on her coat, and I can just remember leaning against it and patting the collar. That was when I was very young, before I got to listen to Dr. Wyckoff. But there had to be something to do. So that, I told you that I married young, and my family were all Cornell graduates. And so in 1940, I applied, guidance being nothing like it is today. I applied one college, Cornell. And then, of course, all the boys came home from service, and they had filled up on women, and they had the young men. I was not accepted.
Oh, boy, yeah.
So, but meanwhile, I had won the Elmira College Award, and it was a scholarship to Elmira, but I never even applied. So nobody told me what I should be doing. So for the year that I did then apply and started the following year, but Gladys Mendham, my church school teacher, who was head of the Rockland County Child Welfare Department, said, "Joyce, why don't you be a caseworker in training?"
Whoa, wow.
And of course, she even let me use her car. I mean, this was the kind of person she was. And while she was supervising, I worked with caseworkers and learned to type. At that time, you had no way of...
Regular typewriter.
I typed the caseworkers'
Wow, yeah.
account of their
Oh,
family
yeah, that's
visits
right, yeah.
directly on the typewriter and put it in their records. So I got to be a pretty good typist.
That's
But
right.
it was, I was lucky. I took that my last year of high school.
Oh.
So Gladys was a big influence on me, both as a church school teacher and as a supporter and believer in what I could do. And so that was very important. Tom and I married very young, and while he worked at Letterly, and he worked two jobs. He worked as a waiter in a restaurant.
You met him in school.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
went
that's
to
right.
school
Yes,
together.
Kathy, yeah.
And I had a little house. We were on a hill, only thing we could afford, and children, 1, 2, 3, no car. I learned to make do,
Yeah, that's right. That's
which
right.
is a good thing, but it seemed as though we're being led because Jesus was so much a part of Dr. Wyckoff, and Tom and I couldn't decide on which church. His Episcopal, where
Oh,
he
he
was
was,
the
yeah? Okay.
choir. He worked as kind of a lay person there,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
me in my choir and connection.
Reformed church,
So
yeah.
when we moved to Suffern, we tried all the different churches. The only church that greeted us was the Methodist Church.
How about that?
And we were immediately taken in. We were called upon, and Tom became a leader of the youth group. And so our church associations were kind of falling into our hands.
Yeah.
And Tom decided while we were in Methodist church there that he wanted to go into ministry.
How about that?
So he was sent up to Middlefield, New York to talk to the DS about being a student minister while he finished his undergraduate work at Oneonta State, which is why he's such a teacher. He loves teaching. And I was in a house with no heat.
It was a parsonage?
In the parsonage. We had a coal range in the kitchen, which I learned to work,
Oh, wow.
and 3 little children.
Now,
And
tell
no
me,
car.
tell me that it was like 1950s? The year that you were married, then moving into the...
In 1954, we were in Middlefield.
Oh.
And that's the church.
first church.
It was a 5-church parish.
Man.
3 Baptist and 2 Methodist. And Tom had a real trial by fire. God bless him. He loved the people. He became the first fire chief of Middlefield. We have commemorations of that because a house burned down our first year. And there was no fire department. We had to wait for Cooperstown come. And so we both became, I was with the people while he was in school.
Yeah.
He worked all weekend and trying to prepare a sermon
That's right.
for travel.
5 churches.
5 churches, but not all. The Baptist, he had to go from Middlefield, where there was a Baptist and Methodist. For 1 month, it was at the Methodist church, where I had to learn to play the organ with
Oh, man, you even played the organ, huh?
Yeah, because it was real country.
Oh.
And our children were little
That's
and
right.
not well behaved.
Oh.
And so sitting them in a pew and playing the organ and Tom, it was a real trick.
Yeah, okay.
And, but we learned so much. And why I'm saying that my faith journey is both of us. It's because both of us were involved from the very start.
Very beginning, yeah.
And the decision to go into ministry was made jointly. we didn't have anything. $45 a week they paid us. And we were very lucky. Some farmer would bring us what he shot. I don't know, whatever it was. And I learned to cook on the coal stove.
Oh,
and
boy.
it was, and no heat in the winter,
Wow.
except this coal stove, which sent
Yeah.
up to the bedrooms. And my children were in the bedroom with the pipe that
Yeah.
made heat. The first thing that we could buy, we bought a space heater for the living room so that we could
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
a little outside of the kitchen.
Yeah.
But we had more fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the girl who learned, who was taking piano lessons, said she would play in the Baptist. They were Baptist. I'll play in the Baptist church. And we still keep in touch
How about
with her.
that?
And her father and mother helped Tom. Her father became co-chief at the fire department.
How about that?
And we became so much a part of a community that here's God at work.
Yeah. I'm listening.
And nothing planned, but all happening because we loved the people, and youth became very much a part. We had little ones, so other people brought their little ones,
True.
and it worked beautifully.
Help us what Orangemen are. Some of
Orangemen
those
are the Protestant, still believing
Group.
in connection to England only.
That's right. They're very hostile against the Catholics.
The
people in the
Catholic,
island.
period.
Yeah.
We left their house for supper, walked to our car, and down the street, walking backwards, were armed soldiers.